Hello everyone. The purpose of this video is to just encourage you a little bit that it really is possible to learn Greek. There is a 5-step process that I use that I believe will take just about anyone who is willing to put out the effort through the process of learning Greek to successfully reading and exegeting the New Testament text. And after all, that is why we are here. We want to be able to encounter the New Testament in its original source and understand what those words meant. So it's a 5-step process. The first step is to relax. I know if you're anything like me, when I got ready to learn Greek, I brought an awful lot of fear and trepidation to the process. And I just want you to understand that you can let that go. You can let the anxiety move behind you. That was one of the biggest problems I had because I was so afraid that I wouldn't be able to learn Greek. So get that out of the way. I have learned Greek. If I can learn Greek, anyone can, because I assure you, when God was giving out gifts, the ability to learn a language was not one of those gifts. It was incredibly frustrating for me personally because my wife got all the language learning gifts. She picks up language just like she would breathe. So it's very, very easy for her. In fact, she actually learned Greek at least as well as I did just by listening to me go through the process of learning Greek. So if I can learn Greek, anyone can. I'm not saying it'll necessarily be easy. It'll take a daily study of about an hour or so to learn Greek. But if you do that, I think you will be able to learn Greek. Second part of this first step is that there are an enormous number of helps available for you. The Mounce textbook is a very, very good textbook. Spend some time with the Mounce textbook. The Mounce workbook is also very good. I think you have included in your course material the video lectures. I would watch those. And don't forget about Mounce's website. It's teknia.com, Teknia.com. There is a Greek font there and just a wealth of information to help you learn. So you'll have flashcards, you'll have the videos, you'll have the paradigms, you'll have all kinds of things to help you learn. Your part, sort of the bargain, is that you need to study on a regular basis. My part of the bargain is to try to teach you as well as I can and to remind you over and over and over again this first session of classes to relax, that you can learn it. Don't let the panic harm you. We will get through this together. I've been teaching Greek for a number of years. I've taught Greek in college. I've taught Greek in seminary to master's level. I've taught Greek in a prison to prison inmates. So if all of us can learn and get through this process, I feel sure you can too. So step 1, relax. The second thing you need to do to learn Greek effectively after relaxing is to understand that learning Greek is a process, and it may be something that you're not used to. If you've never learned a foreign language, you've probably forgotten the process you went through to learning English. And I will just guess that it probably took you a couple of years of your young life to actually learn English. So it could be sort of daunting to think, okay, I've got to learn a brand new language in 8 weeks or 16 weeks or something like that. First thing is, we're not going to be learning how to speak all the entire Greek language. We're only going to be learning how to read and recognize and understand the Greek of the New Testament. So first of all, you're working with a much smaller set of words and language here. Secondly, there is a process, and the process that we'll be going through will help you learn the language step by step. There will be new concepts. There may be some concepts that you're not familiar with. We'll be dealing with things like case and person and gender. Now these may all be new concepts, and if they are new concepts, I can just about guarantee you that they will confuse you for a while. I know that when I learned Greek, I was totally at sea because all of these new things were being thrown at me all of a sudden, and I really just didn't understand what was going on. I want to emphasize that so that if you are confused the first week, the second week, even the third or fourth week of class, it's okay because you're having a lot thrown at you all of a sudden. And I think what you'll find is that somewhere between the third and the sixth week, you'll come to kind of an epiphany. Things won't make sense up until then. You'll feel like you're lost. You'll feel totally confused. You feel like nothing makes any sense. but all of a sudden you'll start to get a glimmer of understanding. And then the next week the glimmer will grow and you'll understand a little bit more. And typically by the 5th or 6th or 7th week, and I understand that'll be close to the end of class, most students look back to what they covered in the first week and they say, why was that so hard? That's a very, very easy concept. And you'll do that because it was not an easy concept in the first week. It was something totally foreign to you. And a lot of times it just takes a week or so, or 2 weeks, for a concept to get into your brain and become understanding. So be aware that you may be confused at the beginning. Don't panic about it. You will get through it. And I guess the last piece of advice in this segment I would give you, and it's very good advice because it will keep you up to date in the class. Even if you don't understand something, memorize it. We'll be going through a lot of paradigms. We'll be going through a lot of vocabulary words. And while they may not make sense in the beginning of the class, you will pick it up and they will make sense. And then once they make sense, if you've memorized it, you'll have it all together. If you wait until it makes sense to start memorizing and learning, you're probably going to be too far behind in the class. So if you don't understand, don't panic. It's okay. I didn't understand when I was learning Greek. And if you don't understand, go ahead and memorize, and it will make sense very, very quickly. In this step, I want to talk about the actual process of learning Greek. And the most important thing I can tell you about this step is to do it every day. You need to study your Greek every day. Now that's going to mean studying the paradigms, and we'll talk in the class what a paradigm is, but it's a piece of Greek grammar that you need to remember. You need to study your vocabulary words every day. And there are different ways to do this. Some people do it while they're brushing their teeth, some people do it in the car, some people do it when they wake up in the morning, some people do it at lunchtime, some people do it just at any time that you have a moment. It doesn't take a long time to run through a paradigm or to run through some of your vocabulary words, because you'll be using flip cards for the vocabulary words and maybe even flip cards for your paradigms. So just as you're brushing your teeth in the morning, go through the O, Asai, Omen, Edi, Usi is one of the paradigms you'll have to learn. It sounds like nonsense syllables now, kind of like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, if you remember Mary Poppins, but it will make sense, and you do need to have them at your fingertips. So study every day. You probably need to plan on studying Greek at least an hour 5 times a week if you don't study every day. And it's a lot better to study 1 hour a day for 5 days a week than 5 hours 1 day a week. There is something magic in the repetition over a period of time, and you just need to do that to drill these things into your head. So plan on studying Greek an hour or so every day. The second thing is be very, very careful not to fall behind. Greek is one of those things that you have to have mastered the first week's lesson before you can move on to the second week's lesson and the third and the fourth. So you can't depend on catching up 3 or 4 weeks all in 1 week's work. It really will probably take you a week's worth of effort and repetition and practice to learn the language, so you need to stay up to speed. Second thing is exactly how to study. If you've never learned a language, like I mentioned before, it is a new process and it will be confusing. And what I found worked for me when I was going through and trying to learn this was to read the book first and not be worried if I didn't necessarily understand everything in the book, but just read it, make sure I'd read every line, read everything in the book, and go through the whole chapter first. Then, in the case of mounts, what you might want to do is watch either the video summary or watch the video lecture. That way you've had the lecture twice, you've had the material twice, and hopefully you're starting to get glimmers of sense to it. Third thing I would do is go through and start memorizing your vocabulary words or your paradigms. And even, again, if it doesn't make sense right away, go ahead and start memorizing that. If you've done that, if you can effectively reproduce the paradigms and learn the vocabulary words, you've accomplished the material for the week, even if you don't necessarily understand it. Then, if I had more time, what I would do is go back and take notes on the chapter. I would write things down from the chapter. In other words, I would just study the chapter, starting with the pieces I did know and see if I could move out to make more sense of the pieces I didn't know. Finally, don't be afraid to ask questions, either of your other students or send me an email or something like that. Many times something that will stump you is not necessarily hard. It's just a new concept and you need a little reinforcement, or you need it explained a little bit different way. So if you read the chapter, watch the videos, go back, read the chapter, study, learn the paradigms and the vocabulary. Even if you don't understand it, the material will be there for you to use when you do understand it. The fourth thing you need to do to learn Greek effectively is just learn to have endurance. What you'll find is very often we only have 1 week devoted to learning a piece of material or a new paradigm or a new verb form or something like that, but it might take longer than a week for it to actually soak into your head. This is okay. This is exactly what I experienced going through learning Greek. So learn the material and then be patient. Endure even if you are confused. And I think what you'll find is that if you, after you've gone through 3 or 4 lessons, if you look back at previous lessons, you will find that they've had a chance to soak in, they've had a chance to, you have a chance to be adapted to them, and they're starting to make a lot more sense. So endure and hang in there. I can't tell you how confused I was when I first started Greek. There was just so much coming at me in so many different ways and so fast that I felt lost and hopeless. But I had good encouragement, I had good teachers, and they told me to hang in there, that it would start making sense. And I can promise you that it will start making sense for you too. You'll get used to the new concepts, you'll see how they apply, and you will learn things if you hang in there with me through the course. So we will get through this together if we just all endure. All right, you've made it this far. I've got some good news for you. The good news is that you probably already know more Greek than you think you know. You may have heard about the Greek alphabet, and some of the letters are different from what you're used to. The good news is very many of the letters are exactly the same or similar to what you're used to. So learning the Greek alphabet, while you need to go through and learn it in alphabetical order, it's something that you probably already know a good 2/3 of the alphabet. So that ought to be a little bit of a relief. The second thing is you probably know a lot more Greek words than you think you do. Now, coming up in a biblical background, you probably know some just because you've heard them in sermons all your life. But because a lot of modern day English is based on Greek, a lot of the words that we use every day come from Greek roots. And as we go through the study of Greek, you'll see many of those words pop up. So it will not be totally starting new. You already know the alphabet and you know a wide variety of Greek words. So all that's left is we learn the grammar and we learn all the vocabulary that we don't know that shows up in the New Testament. So relax, learn the process, work the process. Don't be afraid if you get confused. Hang in there and memorize, even if you do get confused, because really you actually know more than you think you do, and you will learn a lot more than you think you can learn if you just study every day for the next 8 weeks. Thanks, guys. We're going to do our best to all get through this together. Like I say, I've done this for a lot of years with a lot of students, never lost anybody yet, even taught Greek in prison. So if inmates in prison can learn Greek, if I could learn Greek starting from my position of absolutely no talent in languages, then I feel sure you can learn Greek too. See you in the next video where we go through the alphabet.